I am here to talk about something that we are surrounded by, which is applications. We are living in the most optimized era in the human history. We optimize our sleep, our time, our productivity. We have dashboards everywhere. But the problem is, or let me call it the missing part is, it is giving us data, it is giving us information, but it's not telling us what we are feeling inside. I want to help you understand the entire project of mastering your inner self by the story of this character called Carrie. On paper, Carrie was doing everything perfect. He would optimize his sleep cycles, calorie in, calorie out, doing everything right, but on papers. But yet he noticed after every few weeks, a pattern repeated in his life. That means he would have a crash of energy, suddenly feel burnout, anxious for no reason. Even when he was surrounded by his family and friends, he would just totally feel totally disconnected. So my question to you is, has that something like that ever happened to you wherein everything was perfect on the outside, but internally you're not feeling good. You're not feeling that you're making it. But the problem with Carrie was every time he faced this little failure, he would not slow down. He would actually go harder on himself. He would blame himself. He would ask questions which will end up in judgments. He would call himself by different names. He would have a lot of guilt and be ashamed of himself sometimes. But the problem is, I want to ask that what if this technology, which is all around us, it is supporting us, it is giving us ways to optimize our life, can that technology also help us understand ourselves? Because we are busy all day long. Some people are actually busy, some people just pretend to be busy because we are overloaded with so much information all around us. That is why I want you to understand the entire journey of how technology might be useful in helping you understand yourself with this principle I call the mirror principle. Now, it's an acronym. That means it has a full form. The M in mirror technology or the project is all about measurement. And that's exactly what technology is doing the best right now. We measure everything. We measure our hours, we measure our output, our efficiency. Just like us, Carrie also had plenty of data. But the missing part of that data was what will Carrie do with that so much information? Because technology helps us to understand what is happening. It is not helping us. Why is this failure or this pattern repeating again and again? How many of you exactly know what happened, when it happened, but you do not know why is it happening again and again in your life? That is why we need the next part, which is I for interpretation. Now, interpretation is just like a assessment that you have for yourself. But the problem is, as humans, we are the most critical judges of our own self. That means if a problem is happening in your life, you will have the harshest judgment towards yourself. But when the problem is happening in someone else's life, you will give them a benefit of doubt. Without interpretation, or let me say, without the right interpretation, numbers, the data that you see on your mobile phone applications or the dashboards just become a judgment. Now, Carrie also noticed this overload of information, which made him feel more anxious, more disconnected. But over a period of time, he started to see that this everything that's happening in his life is following a pattern. And that's when we need the third part of it, which is R for reflection. Reflection helps us to understand why things are happening. So instead of just forcing and asking, how do I fix it? Reflection helps us to understand why is this pattern repeating after every Thursday? For example, in Carrie's story, after every weekly review on a Thursday, his heart rate variability would go up and down, his pulse rate will go up and down, he will have very, very bad sleep the next day. Why? Because it was the silent stress which was internally damaging him. R for reflection helps you see your patterns because reflection is all about understanding why things are happening. And when you understand your patterns, There's no pressure on you because everything that happens in a life is following a pattern. And pattern is not random, it's a structure, it follows a rhythm, it follows a system. And the good thing is, these systems, these structures, these rhythms can be changed only once you understand. So, after reflection, you go for the next R in the whole mirror theory, R for responsibility. Responsibility is whatever is happening in my life is happening because somewhere I'm not making the right choices. One thing that you have to remember here is if you are creating a lot of false judgments around your life, it'll create a lot of guilt and shame. But if you feel that you are responsible for creating the life that you have, you will actually say this to yourself that I do not have to be guilty because now I see a pattern. That is exactly what responsible choices are all about. It is about helping you that this behavior that you are experiencing in life, this trauma or this problem that you're experiencing in life, is not personal, it's structural. And structures can be altered, structures can be changed. And that leads us to the next part, which is ownership. Now, ownership is every time I have a problem, I can choose to keep on repeating the same mistakes again, the same choices, everything same, and I end up getting the same result. But if I take ownership of my life, and it's not out of obedience, it's not out of compliance, it's about alignment, I understand that, you know what, things are happening in my life and I can change it. If I am doing things in my life which is not based on just data, it is coming from inside, which is called self direction. It will help us understand why things are repeating. It will help us pause. It will help us reflect. And that leads us to the last part of this mirror principle called regulation. Regulation is the ability to pause, to respond to situations rather than react, because the ability to notice early whenever things are happening. For example, I take you back to Carrie's story. Now, if Carrie understood that every Thursday I have a weekly meeting and that will end up destroying my sleep, I can take a better decision. That means I can do some breathing exercise, I can talk, I can communicate my feelings rather than like suppressing it. That's how you start changing yourself, because reflection, regulation, responsibility, ownership are all the things that we do in our lives to help us just become a better version of ourselves. And this mirror principle or this mirror theory that I'm discussing right now here is not about forcing a change. It's about helping you understand, just like a mirror, who's not going to judge who you are, what you do. It's just reflecting you what's happening inside. So I believe that the next frontier of technology is just not about optimizing performance. It will be around optimizing our energy in terms of our awareness, in terms of our alignment, in terms of our ability to understand ourselves clearly. And that's exactly what I want you to walk out of this presentation with this little thought. We all carry a version of Carrie in ourselves. So, whenever you look in the mirror, understand if you are optimizing a lot of data, understand the meaning, why things are happening in your life, and also know that if things are not going in the right direction, you can definitely change the way you want it only if you make responsible choices with awareness. Thank you so much.